Today, we're making Maltese rabbit stew, Malta's national dish. It's so famous and popular that the flag carrier of Malta, Air Malta, has a recipe on its website. So today, we're gonna base this mostly on the recipe with just a few minor tweaks, starting with the marination. In traditional Maltese rabbit stew, similar to a beef bourguignon, it calls for overnight marination with red wine, bay leaves, and garlic. We're going to use all those ingredients, but I would encourage you to try skipping the marination because of two reasons. One, when you marinate something, only salt and acid could penetrate the cell membrane and really go deep. Anything else really is a surface treatment, meaning the flavors of the marinade would just stay on the outside. And because the stew calls for a long braising period, flavor-wise, it makes very little difference. Two, because of the surface moisture. In the recipe, and in most meat recipes, it calls for the browning of the meat, searing them at high heat. Protein, high heat, the Maillard reaction. That's what makes meat taste meaty. But surface moisture is the biggest enemy of good browning. In order to achieve good browning, the meat you cook should be as dry on the surface as possible. Instead of the wine marination, if time permits, I will suggest what's called dry brining, meaning you salt the rabbit or the meat that you're cooking thoroughly, about 0.6% to the weight, and you leave it uncovered in the fridge. This way, the salt could do its magic, seasoning and tenderizing the meat by breaking down the protein strands into smaller amino acid strands, and B, the fridge could do its magic by drying the surface. But if you don't have the time, salt it while you cook, it will be equally tasty. Let's make some rabbit stews. So, first, we sear the rabbit, medium-high heat. Once your pot is hot, we add some high smoke point oil. In this case, we're using vegetable oil. Now, because of the uneven shape of the rabbit, I would recommend that you add more oil than you think you need so that we get even browning, and then we can skim off the oil before we cook the rest of the ingredients. It's the same approach with oxtail or anything that's uneven. This is a French farmed rabbit, so it's relatively big. If you're using wild rabbit, I would recommend using 2 and ask your butcher to just chop it up for you. This is the sound you want to hear. And do them in batches. Don't crowd the pan so that they could brown properly. If they're sticking in the beginning, that's absolutely fine. Once they're properly browned, they'll be released from the bottom of the pan. And whatever sticks, they'll become extremely tasty when we deglaze the pan with the red wine. So since we didn't have time to marinate, we season as we go very generously. Now, while that's still browning, we prep the onion. Now the garlic, originally from the marinating process, and we put the garlic separately because they're high in sugar content and they burn much faster than the onions. Now, once everything is perfectly seared, as promised, we tilt the pan and we skim off all the excess fat that we added, which really helped the even browning. We lower this to medium-high heat. The onions, they go in to mop up all those burnt flavors. And once again we salt to help the onions release their moisture, and the moisture would deglaze the pan and mop up the beautiful flavors. That's why this and most braising dishes that require searing of the meat, I don't like to use a non-stick. I like the fond, I like the burnt bits. They build flavors, they add so much complexity to the dish. Now, the steam you're seeing, that's the water content from the onions. And what we're doing is we're using heat to evaporate the water content. And in turn, this will concentrate the flavors and the sweetness of the onions. Once the onions are translucent and there's very little steam coming, we add the sliced garlic. And once the garlic's fragrant, meaning you can smell the wonderful garlic smell, we deviate from the Air Malta recipe once more. We're gonna add the tomato puree now instead of much later in the recipe, because tomato puree, they need to be cooked out a bit to remove a bit of the harshness and concentrate their flavors. Now, if you're cooking this during tomato season, now it's the time to add some fresh tomatoes. But we're in winter now, so we add some tinned tomatoes, 1 whole can. And once again, we cook it out to evaporate some of the water content, to concentrate the flavors. Now, once you've achieved this thick texture, we add the wine. And please use cheap wine for any stewing recipes. They'll taste the same. Almost a bottle, you save a glass for yourself. And with any wine stew, it is extremely important to give time and the wine to reduce. And by reduce, I mean reduce in half. While that's happening, We'll prep the vegetables for later. Peel some carrots. And of course, it's not a Maltese dish without potatoes. I normally like skin-on potatoes, but because this is a stew, I like to peel them just so that they could release a bit of starch to thicken the sauce a bit. Similar size to the carrots. And they go in half an hour before the dish is ready, so they don't become too mushy. Now, this is properly reduced. One last chance for fond inspection. You scrape whatever you could find and you smell to make sure the harshness of the alcohol has completely evaporated. We add our bay leaves, and in most recipes they are very, very generous with the bay leaves, so quite a lot. Bay leaves, they get a bad rap on memes for saying that they don't add anything. That's absolutely not true. They just need time. So for bay leaves to really impart flavors, they need at least 30 minutes of cooking. Now, completely optional, I like to add the giblets to cook. They will overcook a bit, of course, but they impart a bit of flavors to the sauce itself. If you like giblets, go for it. If you don't, absolutely fine. And now, we add the rabbit pieces. Stacking efficiency actually matters a little bit here, because the better you stack, the less liquid you have to add to dilute flavors. And now we add just enough liquid to cover most of it, because they'll shrink. Put the lid back on, and we set it to medium-low heat and let it simmer for about half an hour. After that, we'll add the carrots, the potatoes, to cook until they're soft, approximately another half an hour, and then we can plate. All right, after an hour, we check on our stew. Oh, you can smell the bay leaf, I'm not joking. Oh, this is beautiful. Two options to thicken it. One, you can simply leave it on the stove at highish heat and reduce it to the consistency you desire. Two, my lazy method, we simply take some of the wonderful, wonderful potatoes with some of the cooking liquid. You can take some carrots if you want as well. And we add this back to the pot. And we mix it. And instantly, the texture of the whole dish changed. Let's plate one, shall we? Beautiful rabbit. Oh. Perfect. And there you have it. My variation of the Maltese rabbit stew. If you haven't been to Malta, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. The food, the people, I highly recommend it. This is Maltese rabbit stew. I really hope you enjoy.